Hi, I'm Johnny and you're watching the Hexy Beast. And on this episode I'm going to be doing a quick review of this game right here, Pandemic. Anyway, join me at the table and find out more. Okay, so this is Pandemic, and right now, as you can see, we've set up our outbreaks counter. We've also set up our infection rate counter. We've shuffled these infection cards so that they are ready to be used. And we've shuffled these player cards so that we're ready to choose our characters. So to do this, as in Pandemic, when you're playing solo, you'll be playing two-handed, which is basically when you play two characters at the same time. So, let's see who we get. So the first one we get is the medic. That's always going to be handy. And then we've got the dispatcher, one of my favourites. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the pawns of the corresponding colour and place them both in Atlanta, which is where the game starts. We're also going to make sure that we've got one research station already placed in Atlanta. Okay, so now we've picked our characters and set up our pawns. Let's set up the player deck so that we can get onto a game, shall we? Before we set up the player deck, what we need to do is deal 4 cards to each character. So let's do that now. 2, 3, 4 for the medic, and 1, 2, 3, 4 for the dispatcher. Right. Anyway, let's get on with it. Okay, to set up the player deck, first of all, we need to deal out all the blue cards so that they are into 4 equal piles, as because it's an introductory game, we're only going to be using 4 of these epidemic cards. And we're going to place one of these on top of each of these 4 decks that we've created by sharing out the cards. So we do that now. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to shuffle each one and stack them on top of each other. Okay, so now we've set up the player deck, we're going to place it in the player deck spot on the board. Okay, it's now time to start spreading the starting diseases. And we will do this by taking 3 cards off the top of this infection deck, and then using the locations that we reveal to place 3 cubes on each. So we got 3 in Baghdad, 3 in Bangkok, and we've also got 3 yellow ones in Los Angeles. The colour of the cubes is determined by the colour of the disease on the card. These icons are also represented down here. We're now going to deal another 3 cards to spread 2 cubes. So this time we have Milan, Lima, and Osaka. So we're going to put 2 cubes in Osaka, which are red, 2 yellow cubes in Lima, which is all the way over here in South America. And we're also going to put 2 cubes in Milan. Okay, so now we do that once more, but we're only going to be spreading 1 cube this time. So we've got Essen, Montreal, and London. So we take 3 of these blue cubes, we place 1 in Essen, 1 in London, and 1 in Montreal. Okay, so that's the game pretty much set up. Okay, so the object of Pandemic is to cure all 4 diseases by the end of the game. I'll explain how we do this as we go forward. So right now I'm just going to explain some of the actions that you can do on each turn. Okay, so on your turn you get the choice of up to 4 actions to do. And there's between these 4 movement actions and these 4 other actions. And I'm going to explain these now. So the first action you can take is move and ferry, which is basically just moving a pawn along one of these lines by here. So if I wanted to move my medic, that would be 1 action, 2 actions, 3 actions, etc. The other kind of movements we can do is the direct flight, where we can discard a city card to move to the city named on the card. So for example, if I wanted to go to Paris, I could spend 1 action to discard this card and move my pawn all the way to Paris. Another kind of move action we can do is the charter a flight, which is to discard a city card of the city that we are stood on. And this means we could travel to any space on the board. And finally, there is the shuttle flight movement action, which means we can move between research stations. Okay, so as well as the movement actions, we also have some other actions. And one of these actions are to build a research station, which basically means we can discard a card of the same city we are stood on to build a research station in that city. We also have the option to treat disease, which is to remove cubes at the rate of 1 cube per action from a space on the board that you're stood on. The other thing we can do is share knowledge, which basically allows us to either give a card or take a card of a person that is on the same city as us, and the card we give or take has to be from that city. And then the final action, which is the one that we're really going to be wanting to do, is to discover a cure. And this is basically what we do to win the game. We will end up on a research station, one of these white things by here, and then we will discard a set of 5 cards of the same colour so that we can cure one of the diseases. So anyway, let's just get on with some turns, shall we? Okay, so in our first turn, our medic, who is played by the orange pawn, is going to move 1 for 1 action, 2 for 2 actions, 3 for 3 actions, and he's also going to remove one of these cubes for his 4th action. Once you have finished your actions, we'll then move on to the next phase of the turn. Okay, so once we've done our actions, we will go on to the phase that requires us to draw a card. We're going to draw 2 cards each phase. So in this example, we got Los Angeles and London. Okay, so once you've drawn the player cards for your hand, you will then draw the corresponding amount of infection cards from the infection deck in order to spread cubes on the board. So in this case, we're going to be spreading 1 cube to Hong Kong, and we're going to be spreading 1 cube to Delhi. So because that card is black, we're going to spread a black cube, and because the other card was red, we're going to spread a red cube. So where's Delhi? There it is. If you ever required to place any cubes in a city that already has 3 cubes in it, you're going to cause an outbreak. So for example, if Los Angeles was where we were supposed to place a cube, instead of just playing 1 cube on Los Angeles, when an outbreak occurs, the first thing we would do is first move the outbreak counter down its track. And then we will spread disease to each space connected via a white line. So we'd have San Francisco, Chicago, Mexico City, and if you see right by here, it says Sydney. If the outbreak track was ever to reach this bottom space by here, it would mean the end of the game. Another way to lose the game is if any one of these piles of cubes run out. And if you needed to draw player cards during the draw phase and there was not enough cards there, you would also lose the game. Okay, now we're going to play our dispatcher's turn. And as you can see right now, we've got 2 reds, 1 yellow and 1 black. But this would be a good time to go over the powers. So, each character has individual powers. And these powers are written on its card. Basically, in this case, we'd be able to move another player's pawn as if it was ours. And also, as an action, I can move any pawn to a city with another pawn. I think we need to start dealing with some of these red cubes on the board. So I'm going to take a flight to Taipei by discarding this card. So I'm going to take this flight and discard this Taipei card in order to move my pawn to Taipei. As you can see, that was quite a useful move. So that was my first action. For my second action, I'm going to move to Osaka. And then for my last 2 actions, I'm going to move these 2 cubes from the board. Okay, now I will go into my draw phase. So let's see what we draw. Oh no, an Epidemic card. And the Lima card. So let's put the Lima card back into our hand while I explain how the epidemics work. Okay, so whenever you draw one of these, you will have to first increase the infection rate marker forward 1 space. Then you would draw the bottom card from the deck and put 3 cubes on the city depicted on that card. After that, we would shuffle the discard pile and place it on top of the deck. So let's do all 3 of those steps now. So first, we're going to move the infection rate marker. As you can see, as this increases, the amount of infections that come out each infection phase will increase. And then we're going to draw the bottom card of this deck to see what it is. And that means we're going to have to be putting 3 cubes into Madrid. So let's get that done. Let's put those 3 cubes into Madrid. And what was the third? It would be shuffle the cards in the discard pile and put them on top of the deck. Okay. So let's get that done as well. So we're going to shuffle these, put them on top of the deck. And now we're going to move into our infection phase, which at this point means we're going to turn 2 of these over to place a cube on each city that is revealed. So let's do that. So we got 1 blue cube in London. And we've also got another red cube in Hong Kong. Okay, so first thing we need to do, so that we could cure a disease is make sure we've got the cards we need in hand. So as you can see, we have 5 blue cards. So, to make this a viable option, we need to move into a space where there's a research station. So we're going to use one action to move there, and then we're going to use our next action to discard all 5 of these blue cards. And because we've done that, we actually get to cure the blue disease. So that's our first disease cured. Now, if we wanted to, we could go around cleaning up all the blue cubes on the board so that we can eradicate a disease. An eradicated disease doesn't put any more cubes on the board during the encounter phase, so this would be a good thing. And if we manage to cure all 4 diseases, the players win the game. So, let's go back to my shelf and I'll tell you what I think. Okay, so we're back at the shelf and it's time for me to tell you what I think. So first of all, for this game, the aesthetics, I've given it a 7 out of 10. This is mainly because myself, personally, I'm generally not a big fan of games that use a world map as their board design. There's a couple of exceptions to the rule, but in general, for me, it doesn't really grab me that much aesthetically. It also comes back to things like these pawns. You know, these are quite basic looking components. To be honest, the most interesting components in the box would probably be these counters used to track the infections and the outbreaks. As well as that, we also have these nice little house thingies, which, like I said, there's nothing really to get excited about. Even the art on the cards is just another map of the earth. Okay, so for me, the aesthetics, like I said, I've scored it quite low, but that's just a personal opinion of mine, and you know, the game itself is alright. So let's talk about gameplay. One of the things I really like about this game is the whole mixture of set collection and threat mitigation, which, you know, you're trying to collect sets of certain colours, you're trying to get your research stations out, you're trying to also hold back the spread of the disease. I find this to be quite an engaging gameplay loop, and once those epidemics come out, you'll be screaming obscenities at your board. So I think for gameplay, I'm going to give it an 8, which is a good score. And now for the accessibility, I've decided to give this one a 7, even though it is actually quite simple to learn. There's a few points at which the rulebook isn't entirely clear how things are happening. Like for me, to learn the outbreaks, I had to reread that section of the rulebook a few times. The rulebook is quite short, so it is actually quite easy to learn to play. But like I said, there's just some of those nuances that can really sort of shake you while you're playing, and you won't usually notice them until it's a bit too late to correct them. So overall, this game has got a 7.6 out of 10, which is a great score from me. And we've come to that point in the video where I say, if you like what you see, feel free to smash that subscribe button up there and check out another one of my videos up here. Anyway, I've been Johnny, you've been watching the Hexy Beast, and most of all, stay Hexy everyone!